Uh-huh. All right, we're live again. Oh, what a funny week. So obviously, if you've been following my posts, I've been in moving home. So we are surrounded by boxes still. And also the broadband came on, what are we, Thursday, came on Tuesday night. So hopefully it's okay. They do say the sort of the first 10 days, things can be a little bit all over the place. And obviously I'm in the house, so I'm online. I know my wife's online. The kids might be online, so things might get a little bit hectic. I'm sort of at least priority. So if we do have technical difficulties, I might have to reschedule. But let's kind of go ahead and see where we get to. Funnily enough, obviously this week we've been moving, as I said, so surrounded by boxes, not unpacking yet. There's carpet people coming and such like over the weekend, so they're going to be measuring up. So there's no point I kind of unpacking to have to repack and move everything again. So we're sort of in the middle of a little bit of chaos. The back wall, as you can see, a little bit bland. I do intend to sort that out over the next few weeks, make it a little bit more interesting to look at. And then beyond that, I did squeeze in a call yesterday, which was interesting. It's someone who is, I guess, starting out on their journey in terms of being a coach, not so much in the beginning of the journey as a coach, but in the beginning of the journey as a coach working for themselves. So it was interesting having a quick chat with her, and a couple of things came out of that, and I thought I'd use that to kind of obviously trigger some ideas for this. So what was really important to me was, or what was most interesting to me, was the concept of your business model. Because she asked me a question about how did I arrive at doing what I do the way that I do it. And that was an interesting question, but it also highlighted that it's the one area that gets neglected a lot. Nobody really thinks about it. And particularly if you come from a working environment, an employed environment where you're used to getting paid for your time. So it's kind of like you come in, you work X number of hours a week, you get paid every 2 weeks or every month, depending where you are. But when you go out of that, a lot of people are still stuck in that mindset. I know I was at the beginning, this mindset of kind of still charging for your time. And then you're kind of breaking that down into an hourly rate because that's what you've heard, that's what you know. But that isn't necessarily a business. And that certainly isn't necessarily, or certainly isn't without a doubt, the best business model you could have if you want to extend your impact and expand your reach and extend the amount of revenue that you can generate. I know when I began, I think one of the things that drove me, obviously, like a lot of coaches, is the idea to make a difference. You want to give back in some way, you want to contribute, you want to be able to make an impact and transform people's lives in some way or some aspect of their life. And I know for me at the beginning, I wanted to share ideas. I wanted to kind of be able to help people with the mindset stuff. But it occurred to me very early on that doing that on a one-to-one basis was going to be incredibly slow. Like, I've got one lifetime, however many years I'm here, if I'm seeing people one-on-one, how many hours can you physically fit in a week? And then how many people can you actually impact over a lifetime? And to my mind, it was like, well, that's very limited. I need more leverage. So my first thought right from the beginning, I think very fortunate, was that I recognized I needed more leverage. So at the time, I wasn't thinking it from a business point of view. I was thinking it from a how do I reach more people point of view. And so obviously that led to, well, I need to speak. I need to get on a stage where instead of there being one person in the room and I'm only talking to one person, there could potentially be 10 people in the room, 20 people in the room, 2,000 people in the room. So all of a sudden, the message that I wanted to share could reach more people all at the same time. That's leverage. And so that's what got me into speaking. That's what got me started. That's what got me wanting to develop the skills to be able to entertain people, hold their attention, actually deliver a message that was going to make a difference. And that's where it all started. Then, of course, as that developed, then I began to recognize actually there's more to this. Because, of course, if you want to fill a room, people don't just show up to your seminar just because you want them to. Then you get into the whole marketing area. Once you get into that, then you recognize there's a money involved here. I've told the story before. First advert that I ever ran, obviously I had to pay for the advert. It cost me a lot of money. Pre-internet days or pre-internet marketing. So it was, local paper in London. And then, of course, people arrived and I then delivered a seminar and nobody bought anything. So there was no return. So, and all straight away, I'm making a loss. So that had to change. So there was a skill set to that. And then, of course, pre-pandemic, I'd kind of got to the point where it's hard to put an exact amount on it, but probably 50-50 between online and offline. And then obviously with the lockdown, that shifted everything online. But more so because the question she was sort of asking was, what got you into this place? And I was thinking back over this. I don't remember exactly how I came across this, Probably somebody mentioned it to me, I would imagine, or I stumbled across a video on YouTube, something like that. But I remember listening to, I think it's Steve Blanks. I think it's Blanks, not Blank, so plural. And he is a successful entrepreneur based in California. I think at the time he was teaching at Berkeley. Hey, Rajesh, how you doing? I saw your post about some family challenges. Hope that's all going well and nothing too difficult to deal with. But good morning to you. So I listened to this video and he was taught, I think he'd been successful. Then he set up his own venture capital company. So he was then investing in other companies. And most venture capital companies kind of work on the basis that they're kind of in the hits business, if you like. So they'll invest in 10 companies and expect one of them to be a hit, which pays for the other 9 and makes them a great profit. So he was kind of in that business. But what started to drive his curiosity was this idea that the other 9 people, no problem, Rajesh. The other 9 people, another 9 companies, they're all smart people. You know, they're not, it wasn't like putting money on trying to back people who were dummies. These were smart people with a great idea. So why would 9 out of 10 still fail? You're going, well, intelligence is all there. The idea's there. Why are they still not successful? So it kind of counterintuitive to some of these ideas. You know, I've met people who go, I'm not smart enough to run a business. Like, actually, there's not that much smarts required in terms of basic IQ intelligence. There is a better understanding of the environment you're working in. Absolutely, you need that. But it's not an IQ test. Without a doubt, it's not an IQ test. So he began to drill down into this and try to understand. And he came up with this concept that, particularly in the environment he was in, which was particularly software companies. So they were designing a piece of software. And of course, the designers, the guys putting it together with the idea, they're like, oh, this is fantastic. Let's throw in all these bells and whistles and features and this and this and this and this and this. And so they spend a huge amount of time programming, but not actually from day one thinking about the customer. So he realized, one of the things that Steve Blanks realized was there was a disconnect between what you're putting together, what you think you want to sell, and what the customer actually wants and the values and would actually buy. So he broke it down. So if you ever heard the concept of the minimum viable product, that came out of Steve Blanks' work. And the whole lean movement came out of this as well. So the whole idea of a lean canvas, you know, a lean business, all came out of this. It was all driven by this. And it was all to do with, can they reduce the number of failures? Like Steve Blanks never said at any time, I can absolutely guarantee you'll be successful. What he said was, I can absolutely guarantee we can reduce the probability of failure. Because obviously success, there could be other variables that we're not aware of, you know, but certainly from a failure point of view, if you can identify something that gets in the way and eliminate it, then fantastic, you're a step closer. So one of the things he recognized early on was, you're not going out and seeing the customer. It's like, you've got this idea for a piece of software, you've got this idea of what your business is going to be. You need to get in front of a customer as quickly as possible. And certainly my mentor and friend, Errol, was always of the same opinion. You know, he was very much a fan of, particularly in the coaching world or the speaking world, where it's not a tangible product. It's not like a software or something you order from Amazon that comes through the post. Something which is very intangible. Errol was very much a fan of, you've got to talk to people. So even if you never intended to do one-on-one coaching, start out with one-on-one coaching just to get an insight into your customers, understand where they're coming from. And that's been incredibly valuable advice. And it's something that I've always adhered to and used ever since. And I highly encourage it, because it is a great way to do market research. Not necessarily a great way to run a business, but a great way to do market research. So then that kind of led on to, okay, so the lean canvas was very instrumental and has been very instrumental in my thinking since that time. So we're going back, you know, well over a decade now. So I've actually got a slide with this on. So because I want to show it to you again. I also want to show some of the things that it doesn't do, which are more relevant to kind of the coaching and speaking world. Playing window. Yep. Shrink that down a little bit. Right, back to here. Now I need to share a screen. Share screen. Window. That one, I think. Yep. There we go. There we go. It is blank at the moment. Let me bring up all the pieces. So this is a lean canvas. So rather than putting together, also, how do I get rid of that? Let me get rid of that. That's kind of in the way at the moment, isn't it? There we go. Right. Back to this. Let me just put all the pieces up. There we go. All right. So this is a lean canvas. So this is a basic lean canvas. And what it does is it gets you thinking about your business in the right way. So I don't, I think I've mentioned this before, but it's probably worth repeating. Back in, when was it, 2012, 2013, around that time, me and a friend were helping, the government released their loan scheme for young entrepreneurs. So the idea was they would lend up to £10,000 to young entrepreneurs to go off and do something to start their own little business. And I think the original intention behind it was it's not dissimilar to the venture capital model, which is, look, if we can get as many younger people, like in their 20s at the time, and then it got extended to older people, but in the beginning, it was people in their 20s. If we can get these young people who've got lots of ideas, lots of imagination, give them some help to get their business started. If one of them becomes the next Facebook, then from the government's point of view, that's a fantastic success because it'll create a whole bunch of jobs. And obviously it helps the economy overall. And that was the intention at the beginning, I think. That was my understanding of it. So they were struggling. They had this scheme. I forget, Lord, somebody or other, they put aside £100 million to fund it. And then in the first 6 months, I think they managed to hand out one loan. So, of course, if you're only handing out one loan in 6 months, that ain't good enough. So we got involved because we understood seminars. So we were promoting these things. And we were averaging we would do an event every Saturday in London. And we were averaging around about 200, 300 young entrepreneurs every Saturday. So we certainly got the word out. We certainly helped promote the scheme and get more young entrepreneurs actually viably doing something, moving towards obviously having a successful business. Many would have failed, of course, but that's where we started. And one of the things that I talked about at that time to them was this lean canvas. Because what I noticed early on was we would go in for the day, we'd share some ideas, we talk about different aspects of business, things they needed to think about, things they needed to be aware of. But what then would happen at the end of the day was they broke into groups, and then we would take a small group each. So we got an opportunity to kind of talk to each person, even only for a few minutes, one-on-one. So again, getting an insight into where they were. Now, it doesn't take long. If you're sitting down with a small group and you're talking to them, it doesn't take long to notice patterns. And I began to notice very quickly that I would go from group to group to group because I go, let me talk to another group, let me talk to another group, and so on and so on. And it's like, I got to this point where I just sit down and say, okay, so how are you going to make money? Because people would say to me, I've got this great idea. I want to set up this video studio. I want to do this. I want to set up this music studio. I want to launch this, this label or whatever it might be. They're like, great, how are you going to make money? And they hadn't thought about it. In other words, their revenue model didn't exist. They hadn't thought about actually, where do we take what we've got and exchange it with somebody for money? They were just so focused on the idea or the excitement of, for example, music or video or whatever, which were the two most common things that came up. They were so focused on that, they weren't thinking about where the money came from. So I started sharing this with them, which is saying that this is a lean canvas. So rather than thinking about a full-on business plan, which you might download a template off the internet, which for the most part is useless when you're starting out, use this. So it's kind of like it gets you thinking about, and the boxes really are meant to, the size of the box is meant to represent the priority of the box, the priority of the information in it relative to everything else that's on the page. So a business plan, and I've seen business plans that are like 80, 90 pages long, and they're just filled with nonsense. Whereas this is like cut to the chase. Tell me who your customers are. Tell me what they want. Tell me what the problems are. Tell me what's getting in the way. Tell me how you're going to solve that. And then how you're going to find them. So channels to customers. How are you actually going to acquire them? Because, of course, you're not the only person in town. How are you going to stand out? How is your solution different to everybody else? So as you go around it, you kind of start beginning to think the right way. Now, what this doesn't really share is like, for example, you can say, well, I want to go out and coach. And I go, okay, great. How are you going to make money? Well, I'm going to sell coaching. How? And somebody might say, I'm going to sell it by the hour. Great. Now, that is a model, but it's a very limited model. And one of the things that isn't on this canvas, it doesn't really say to you, where's the leverage? And I think maybe I should do a version of my own where I split this slightly and say, okay, revenue, where's the leverage? Because then at least people would start thinking about it. And so the question I got asked yesterday was like, how did you arrive at this? And it was like, well, actually, I started with this. I started with a lean canvas. I went around it and went, okay, who are my customers? What do they want? What problems are they facing? And then as you see in the middle, I made the sales conversion, but that's not on the original lean canvas, but I put that in and made it bigger because I also notice that most people don't understand the selling aspect or the marketing aspect properly. But even if they're marketing, they're never thinking about, okay, at what point does that turn from I've got your attention, I've got you interested, to actually you're ready to pay money for something. So I put that in the middle. It's okay, how are you going to convert your prospects? So of course, online, these are the main ways: sales letters, video sales letter, a webinar, some sort of live stream, some sort of email promotion. That's the way to do it. But you could say, well, I'm going to sell coaching one-on-one. And you go, great. And there's nothing wrong with that. There are plenty of people at the moment who, for example, are offering a coaching package. So one way to make it more tangible is to take it, not to selling it by the hour, but to sell it as a package. So they go, okay, actually it's a package. It's a 6-week program. It's an 8-week program. It's a 10-week program, whatever it might be. And the purpose of it is to achieve this results. Now we've made it more tangible because we put a result on it. And then, of course, now you can say, well, the result is worth this much, so therefore the price is this much. So that's where the whole high ticket concept comes in. So you kind of say, well, it's a 6-week program. I work with you one-on-one. It costs $10,000. And at the end of it, you'll have all of this in place, which is worth $100,000, for example. So now you got one-to-one model. It's like, well, how many people can you work with realistically? And what sort of business are you going to build around it? Because if you're starting out, and like most people, you're starting out, it's just you. You don't have a team. So who's responsible for all these boxes? You are. Who's responsible for acquiring customers? You are. Who's responsible for creating the videos or putting material out on social media? You are. It's like, so that's a lot to do. So realistically, if you're working with customers one-on-one, how many can you work with in a week? Realistically. You might say, oh, I want to do 40. What is that, an hour session each? That's 40 hours straight away. And then you've got to find those customers and bring them into your sphere of influence through your marketing, through standing out and all of that kind of stuff. When are you going to make time for that? Or is that going to be another 40 hours? Now you're working an 80-hour week. An 80-hour week, yeah, you'll do it. I've known people do it. You know, we all did it in our 20s. It ain't good. Like I had a friend of mine who was working 90 hours a week at one point. And the end result was he wrapped his Ferrari around a tree driving home one night. So it's not a good model. So you kind of go, okay, that's just going to lead potentially to burnout, and then you don't get to help anybody. So where do you bring in more leverage? So you bring in more leverage, say, okay, well, I can change the model. Absolutely. So instead of one-on-one, it's one-to-many. So now you got a bit like I had with the speaking model. I'm not talking to people one-on-one. I'm speaking to 100 people at a time, 200 people at a time, 400 people, whatever it might be. So it's like, great, run a group program. So now it's like, okay, now you can go, okay, well, I've got to design a program. It could be the same program. It could be the same 6-week program with the same result. But this time, instead of saying, okay, I'm working with you one-on-one, it's like, no, I'm working with 20 people at a time or 50 people at a time or 1,000 people at a time, whatever it might be. Now you got more leverage. And that's important because now you got more opportunity for time freedom. Because, of course, if you're working with, let's say you got 30 people on your group program, and it's 6 weeks, and you talk to them twice a week. So let's say you do 2 lots of 90 minutes in the week. So that's 3 hours of actual delivery, coaching, working with people live time. But you've got 30 people on the call, and they've all paid $5,000. That's pretty cool. That's not a bad model. And now, of course, you've got, take out the 3 hours from your week. All of that other time is now available to you. So you're less stressed. You got more time to be creative. You got more time to think about the marketing, more time to kind of strategize and work on what you need in your business, more time to think about how you outsource things. Like at the moment, I'm looking for a video editor. It's like these things are important in our online social media world, but now you got time to think about it. Now you got time to breathe. Now you got time to exercise. Now you got time to spend with your children, with your family, to actually have fun. And that was the other aspect of it. As this woman was asking these questions, I said, what drove it was I wanted more freedom, more fun, and more impact. And I couldn't do that one-on-one. So that's why your business model is so important. So you could then say, okay, well, if it's going to be a group program, well, there's going to be educational concepts, educational insights I need to share with them, material they need to learn, skills they need to develop. And then you package that into a course. That's where courses start. It's like this idea, okay, look, rather than, because if you're a coach, you know yourself. If you're helping someone, and I know the line between coach and mentor can get very blurry at times, but if you're helping somebody like I'm doing with, say, strategy, marketing, building their business, all those kind of things, or things that are relevant to all of those things, then more often than not, you end up going through exactly the same things with every single person. So no matter who you talk to, they all typically start with the same foundation, which isn't sufficient for the goal they want to achieve. So then you end up sharing, okay, you need to understand this, you need to understand this, you need to understand this. So rather than just repeat, it's like, well, record it, turn it into a course, slides, your voice, you're done. And then, put it in a membership area or something, put it on video, and then say, okay, look, once they join your program, it's like log in, do module 1. So now they learn it. Now, when we get on the call, now we're all speaking the same language. And this is important. Errol used to talk about this a lot. But like he used to talk about it from the perspective of dealing with your team. Like, because his whole model was very much have an idea, validate the idea, build a team, let the team run the business, move on to the next business, validate the idea, put a new team in, and so on. So, and that's how he ran, 40 odd businesses simultaneously. It was incredible. But he needed the same language. So it was the same idea. So he recognized through his own struggles that he needed to put something together. So when somebody became part of the team, it's like, okay, here's the reports that we work to. Here's the reports that we work from that help us shape our decisions. Here's the language we use. So Errol talked in profit centers. So if you've never heard the concept profit center, or you've come from a company that didn't use that term, you'd be like, what the hell's that? So he needed something in place to kind of at least say to people, look, here's how we describe how we make our revenue. Every area where we sell something is a profit center. If it makes money, it's a profit center. So then everyone's speaking the same language. Same with your coaching clients. It's like put them through your modules so they learn the skills they need and they're all talking the same language. So you've got them on a group and you get on a call and it's a live call. Everybody understands the concepts you're talking about. You don't have to keep explaining everything over and over and over again. And that gives you more leverage. I guess I got a little bit off track there, but the important part is this is about your business model. It's like, how are you going to build in leverage? And so when I looked at it, the next thing for me was, because I did some consulting. When at end of 2014, I'd pretty much been on a plane most of the year, and I was exhausted. There were all sorts of challenges coming up because of that. And I thought, you know what? Give me a second, Rajesh. I'll answer that. And so at the end of 2004, I was like, I don't want to be on a plane again. I don't want to be traveling. And I went along to a networking event locally, and I sat down, and everyone stood up and did their 30 seconds. So like a little 30-second pitch. This is who I am. This is what I do. And as I'm listening, it was very much apparent to me, and this wasn't meant to be disrespectful to anybody. It was like, these people don't understand marketing. They certainly don't understand selling. And so I stood up and said, okay, look, here's my background. Here's what I can do. And immediately I had people wanting to talk to me. And so out of that, I ended up taking on a couple of one-on-one clients and was really just basically acting as their marketing strategist and advisor. But there were things that they needed to do. Like I wasn't there to run their business. I was there to kind of say, these are things we can put in place. Here's how I can help you do that. And here's what you need to do to get these things in place as well. Like, it's not all down to me. I think they obviously, with hindsight, maybe wanted somebody to just kind of go, you do that so I don't ever have to think about it. Great. You need a marketing department. You need an agency at minimum. But it was rather than actually, no, this is a done with you, not a done for you. So what I noticed was people didn't do the work. They didn't do their bit. And I wasn't enjoying it. I didn't enjoy the one-on-one. The energy wasn't the same as working with a group. So what was important, I realized as well, and I do remember sitting down with my journal and thinking this through, is that fun needs to be built into my business model. So there needs to be things in there that are fun. What's fun to me from a business perspective? Like, the end purpose is to make a difference, to have an impact. But on a daily basis, what's fun? What's fun to me is the creativity. What's fun to me is the strategy, coming up with strategy. What's fun to me is coming up with big ideas for marketing campaigns. What's fun is writing great copy. What's fun is recording video. What's fun is going live. All those things are fun. It's like, right, how do you build that all in and generate a revenue and have leverage? And so then, of course, you start getting into other ways of having leverage, selling courses, and then going, okay, well, there's only so many courses that I want to create. I don't want to reinvent the wheel. There's some brilliant courses out there that other people create, and they've probably done a far better job than I would ever do. And it's a great course. Wouldn't it be nice if I just kind of helped promote their course? And obviously they win, the customer wins, I win from a revenue stream as a commission. So then you're into affiliate stuff. So that's where I got into the affiliate stuff. So all of that played a part. So what I would suggest is that you, take a screenshot of this, or I'll turn it into a PDF as well, but take a screenshot. I'll put a PDF in the group so you can download it in the group. look at it in terms of and start answering the questions. And this will help you with your question, Rajesh. Create and launch your own webinar. Your webinar is your conversion event. So your webinar is where you are. The benefit and the value of a webinar is that you can educate, you can establish your credibility, and you can make an offer. So you can move people to buy in all in one thing, in one pitch. And that's a brilliant way of doing it. And of course, recognize that, if you had 100 people on a webinar, let's keep it, I'd say starting out the gate, let's say you had 10 people on a webinar and one of them buys. Fantastic result. And the other thing as well is if you've done the webinar well and you've educated and you shared some great information, established your credibility, then the other 9 people may still buy from you next week, next month, next year. Like they won't forget you. And as long as you sort of stay in touch with them and stay, if they're on your list and you're sort of communicating with them, at some point they'll take you up on your offer, which is fantastic. So I would suggest snapshot this and then also think about what's important to me in my business. So for me, what's important to me was fun, freedom, making an impact. So obviously then there's a profit got to be involved. So money's got to be involved, profit's got to be involved. So within that, it's like, okay, what do I want to do with my freedom? What kind of lifestyle do I want to lead? That led me to kind of thinking about what's that going to cost on a monthly basis. That feeds back into, okay, well, I need this business to pay me this much so I can lead this lifestyle and have this much fun. And therefore I can also have time freedom, impact freedom, like all of that and fun. And that was a big thing. So look at it through the lens of use the canvas to really drill down into what kind of business are you building and understanding if there's a box you can't answer, then you got to get out into the world and get an answer to it. So this is what forces you into the real world. If you don't know what your customers want, talk to them. If you don't know what problems they've got, talk to them, research, go and dig into Facebook groups, find out the kind of questions that people ask or the comments they make, because all of that tells you what's going on in their head. If you don't know what is unique about what you do, look at what everyone else is doing in your marketplace, because you've got to do something different to them. If you don't know what your solution is or how you're going to deliver it, start thinking about it now. Like, are you going to deliver it 1-to-1? Are you going to deliver it over a 6-week program? Are you going to deliver it 1-to-10, 1-to-20? Are you not going to deliver any kind of live stuff and you're just going to sell courses? Like, what is it? How are you going to make money? And then drill down into, okay, what's important to me? If fun's important to you, how are you going to have fun doing this? How do you build fun into your business model? If freedom's important to you, because like getting up and being able to go, okay, look, I know there are things I need to do today, but I can still have fun doing them because I don't have to work 9 hours a day. Like literally 90 minutes a day, I'm pretty much done. Anything beyond that is just me having more fun. So I tend to work, obviously not this week, but I tend to work maybe 4 hours a day. But actually, I could probably do it in 90 minutes, to be fair. It's just, I just get into it. I just enjoy what I do. So where do you get leverage? Where do you get fun? Where do you get profit? Build all that in. And if there are other things that are important to you, you got to build that in as well. All right. So question, I'm stuck on how to create and launch my webinar. I seem to have a mental block. I'm going through strategic again. Yes. I don't understand why I can't create and launch my first webinar. Probably because you're chunking at the level of webinar. So you're looking at it as webinar. Whereas what you really want to do is break it down into small pieces. Like how do you, the stupid cliche, but it's certainly relevant. How do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? But I also suppose the challenge of that metaphor is like, what an elephant looks like. It's big. The idea is one bite, a bite is small. With a webinar, it's like you got to break it down into bite-sized pieces, literally. But you don't know what those pieces are. So if you have gone through inside the Strategic Den, my webinar model, then you know the pieces you need. So then take the first piece and drill down into that. But everything you do is driven by this, who the customers are. So what do customers want? What problems are they facing? And from what I remember, you're doing something with selling. Yeah, you might well be targeted to the wrong audience. And this is the other side of knowing, having an ideal client avatar is you don't necessarily know who that is out the gate. You just have an idea of who that is. Like it's in the broad field. And then as you progress, it evolves. So I would say more often than not, people find out who their ideal customer is because they get out and talk to customers. Like I said, I did some one-on-one consultancy back, sort of 2015 time. And as much as I could run a webinar and generate clients pretty much on demand, I wasn't enjoying it, but I had an understanding of who they were. And out of that, there was different types of people that I saw. There were people that had met me at other people's events who then got in touch with me. And when they said that they were doing some sort of coaching, so it was very broad. It was a very broad kind of, these people are coaches. But actually, as I got into it, the people that I liked helping the most are the people that are also wanting to do more marketing type material or sales material. They tend to be more fun. People who want to do stuff online and market online and are willing to pay for advertising, I have more fun with them because I like advertising strategies. It's like that gets my brain working, so it's fun. So don't necessarily expect to know who your perfect client is from day one. Everything evolves. What you want to be doing is, I can certainly email you a link and you can book something in if you wish, yes. What you want to be doing is recognize that you want to be in the right ballpark. So if you're in the right ballpark, you're in the right arena, then you can start to refine it as you move forward. So for me, I was very influenced. Let me give you a thinking about the way I think about this so that you can understand it, because I apply the same thinking to property investments as I do to business. There's a guy called, oh my God, I can see his face, and I've met him. I met him at an event he spoke on the same platform as me, or I spoke on the same platform as him in Australia. He's an economist, Harry Dent Jr., Harry S. Dent Jr. And he's a amazingly smart guy, really switched on, wrote a few books. And I think one of the original books I read of his, I forget the title of it now, I'll look it up. But he was talking about economics from a real point of view. What I mean by that is, you're saying, look, economics is Homer Simpson. It's like too many people make economics overly complicated. This was him talking. He said, but really it's about Homer Simpson. If you think about it, and he talked about how you could kind of predict the things people would buy based on where they were in their lifespan, or what stage of life they were at. So, and he said, if you think of it, it's a bit like, so when the baby boomers, so take the baby boomers, huge increase in the population in America. I mean, I think it went from 2 million, it was like a 5-fold increase over a 10, 15, 20-year period. It was incredible. So you had this massive increase in the number of people being born. So if you got a huge, massive increase in the number of physically babies existing in your country, what's going to happen? Well, straight away, you're going to see an increase in people buying nappies, or diapers, as they call them in the States, because there's more babies. So he said, like, you can predict what these people are going to buy, because they've all had children around the same time. They're all going to be buying diapers around the same time. So the demand for diapers went like this. Incredible. Yeah, you'll find them both. Oh, let me put that up. Yep, Rajesh, you'll find them both on YouTube, without a doubt. So obviously the demand went like this. Now think, babies do what? They grow. So now they become toddlers. So what do toddlers want? You'll see an increase in things toddlers want. Toddlers eventually become, young children and start to go to school. Now what are they going to need? Of course, at some point they become teenagers. Then of course they grow. And so you can see this. So he said, you can predict the economy based on where people are at stages of life and how many people are in that stage. Like Harley Davidson, if I remember this correctly, Harley Davidson were going to go out of business. But all of a sudden, the baby boomers started to hit retirement age. So you had all of these midlife crises happening on a big scale. So when a guy, particularly, this is a male-dominated trait, when a male has a midlife crisis, what do they tend to do? Well, one of two things. They either have an affair or they go and buy a motorbike. So all of a sudden, you saw this massive boom, literally, in Harley Davidson sales, because all of these baby boomers were hitting midlife crisis. So Harry Dent's whole point was, you can predict these things. Now, I took that and went, okay, that's brilliant. And I applied it to property originally, because I was looking at property and looking at properties in London. And I was thinking about stages of life, because, of course, you can see this in property. And I still use this model. I still teach this model. It's like, you can see this where people will go, okay, fall in love. So the first time they fall in love. Then, of course, they fall in love with somebody. Maybe they go through a few relationships. Eventually, they find someone they want to spend their life with. Now they start to live together. So maybe they rent to begin with. But of course, as soon as they start thinking this is more permanent, or we're going to get married, or we're going to have children, they might start to think about buying. So then you start seeing, okay, what's the first home they're going to buy? So they want to move out of their 1-bed or 2-bed city apartment and they want to move into a house somewhere else with good schools. So you start to see more demand for those types of properties. Of course, then their children grow or they have more children. They need a bigger home. So now they sell and they buy a bigger home, and you can kind of predict when that's going to happen. And then, of course, when the children grow up and they move out, now what do? They got this big family house that they're knocking around in. They don't need all that space. It's a lot to maintain it. They're getting older. They don't want the maintenance issue. What do? They retire. And what happens when they retire? And I saw this. So in London, you would see people selling up their big townhouses and typically moving out to other parts of the country. Now, one of the most popular destinations still is the southwest of England. So you see people moving out of London, selling their family home and buying always two-bed properties in the southwest. Why? Why do they buy two-bed properties in the southwest when they're retiring? Because they need one bedroom for them and one bedroom for when the grandkids visit. Makes sense. So therefore, from a strategy point of view, what was I doing 5-6 years ago? Buying two-bed properties in this area. And now, of course, because of the nature of the area, it's got more popular. I was able to go and track government statistics on predictions of where the population was going to grow, where people were moving to. Again, more people moving to the southwest of England because you're near beaches. It's a good quality of life comparative for UK. So you saw more families moving here. So what did that do? That drove up demand for rental property for families and so on and so on. So you can predict these things. So now let's come online. What was I talking about 20, 25 years ago? I used to have this conversation with, he's not someone Daniel Priestley. I don't talk to him on a regular basis, but we know each other. And Daniel came and did a talk at an event that I was hosting. And he started talking about the Entrepreneurial Revolution. And I thought, I've been talking about that as well. And so I had a chat with him about it. And so, we had this kind of commonality of, we believe over the next, this is going back 20, 25 years, over the next 10, 15, 20 years, we're going to see a massive entrepreneurial revolution. And then a couple of years in, I said to him, there is going to be a revolution, but it's not going to be a revolution of the young. It's going to be a revolution of people in their 50s. It's like as more and more people reach their 50s and suddenly realize that, and this was pre-financial crisis and certainly even accelerated by the financial crisis, more and more people will recognize that their pension ain't worth diddly squat. As in, they've been paid into this pension, they're approaching retirement, they're looking at it and realizing that their pension is worth less than the amount of money they've put in it. So that is not going to pay for their retirement. What are they going to do? They're going to need another income. So you're going to see a massive drive. Yeah, it's a nice guy, Daniel. You're going to see a massive desire for people wanting to create another income stream. So what did that drive? Well, overall, that's an entrepreneurial revolution. More people taking control of their own financial destiny, taking control of their own income, not being employed, driving it themselves. So you have seen and continue to see massive growth in a number of people wanting to invest in property and real estate because it's a model, it's a business. A lot of people have an understanding of it. They bought a home, they've sold a home, they know what a mortgage is, so they have some awareness of it. So that drove that. But then as the internet has grown, and as more people have grown up with the internet, then that's caused an explosion online as well. And the pandemic has accelerated that. So we are still in the middle of this massive entrepreneurial revolution. Now, what's my point of telling you that? It's like, okay, well, who are the biggest customers driving everything at the moment? Online, entrepreneurial type people. So they might be coaches, they might be speakers, they might be advertising, want to build an advertising agency. It doesn't really matter. But their e-commerce has exploded. So you see a massive rise in number of people with Shopify or putting on Amazon's marketplace. All these things, that comes under the umbrella of entrepreneurial because it's people taking control of their income, not being employed by someone else. So there's this massive entrepreneurial revolution ongoing, which started about 25 years ago, which I was talking about 25 years ago, which Daniel Priestley was talking about 25 years ago, which just is bigger than either of us thought it was going to be, or certainly a lot bigger than I thought it was going to be, and is continuing. So you've got this situation where who is the biggest, easiest customer to reach? Someone who is entrepreneurial. Now, of course, you got to drill down into that. It's like, okay, so on some level, you say, okay, who do I like working with? This is why I always ask the question, who do you like working with? Well, I like working with e-commerce type people or people who sell these types of products. Or I like working with coaches. I like coaches specifically. What type of coaches? And again, you might go, well, coaches, start working with a few, a broad spectrum of coaches, and go, actually, the coaches I like the best are the mindset coaches. Let me just work with them. So it's that sort of evolution in your own business is what I'm talking about. But the broad umbrella is, if you've got something which involves, like you're talking about, Rajesh, which is sales skills, who needs sales skills? Everybody who's entrepreneurial. You cannot run a coaching business without having some sort of sales skills. You cannot run a speaking business without having sales skills. You cannot run any kind of online service business without having some sort of sales skills. You can't run an e-commerce site really without some sort of sales skills, because it's not just enough anymore to go, okay, add to basket, because of course the ad cost versus the cost of a small product, it doesn't add up. So now you need to be able to upsell, downsell, cross-sell, incentivize people to buy not just one bottle of something, buy 6 bottles of something. So all of this is sales stuff. It's all sales, marketing. Branding's become more important. Standing out as a personality brand become massively more important. How you use videos become massively more important. So serving that entrepreneurial community, which is just growing and growing and growing. You could literally have 1 million business coaches all making $1 million a year plus, because the marketplace is so big. And obviously that probably close to the truth, actually. So that's my point. So start broad, start working with people, and then drill down based on who you find it easiest to work with, who you find it easiest to help get a result for, who you enjoy working with. Because that's really it. Like, who do you want to work? Like, if you look at, say, a Frank Kern doesn't work with startups. He doesn't work with people who haven't got an existing process that works. In other words, it makes sales. Most marketing online marketing agencies, people who will run ads for you on Facebook, Google, wherever, Taboola, will not work with people who don't already have an existing system or funnel, if you like, that works, that is making sales. Why? Because people starting out are the hardest, biggest pain in the ass there is, because they know very little. They haven't got the right skill sets. They haven't validated their idea. They haven't really, oftentimes, they haven't even got a product that they're selling. They just say coaching. Like, that ain't a product. But they don't know that because they haven't developed the business skills. And so you end up in a situation where you're just helping them do that. I'm trying to help those people by putting out courses, because that's an easier way for me to reach them without getting drawn into some of that stuff, which I don't want to be doing on a one-to-one basis. It's a very competitive and crowded marketplace. Yeah, competitive and crowded means money. Competitive and crowded is what you want. But if there's no competition, it generally means there's no money. So competitive just means be more creative. How do you work in a competitive and crowded marketplace, be more creative? So you got 3 C's: competitive, crowded, creative is your solution. Stuff I find personally difficult. What do you find difficult, though? It's like, just be more creative, brainstorm more, read more books, listen to more podcasts, come up with more ideas, because really all your ideas are based around, who do you want to help? Who do you want to help? How are you going to reach them? So putting a webinar together then is very much about, what is it you're actually selling? What's the offer? So if you're trying to put a webinar together and you're struggling, then start with the offer. What is it you're actually selling? And if you're offering some sort of coaching service, then it's like, great. So then how are you going to package that? Because just saying it's a coaching service isn't going to do it. It's like, okay, what result is it going to deliver? And does that tie in with the result that your customers want? And does it tie in with helping them solve the problems that are stopping them getting that result? That's really all it is. So it's sort of, it comes back to what I've said before, and I'm going to wrap up in a few minutes, but it comes back to what I said before. Take a snapshot of this, or I will put a PDF in the Facebook group and you can download it, but print out multiple copies, because you're never going to get it right first time. But what you are doing is you're putting down your best guess. It's like, who are your customers? Best idea you've got at the moment. And then get out in the marketplace and validate that works. What problems, what are they struggling with? And if you're finding, think of the things that you're finding difficult. I guarantee there'll be other people finding challenges, same problems. And so now it's up to, if you can find people with the same problems you're having and you find a solution for them, now you're in business. So think about how you're going to package it. Fantastic. Think about how you're going to package it. Think about how you're going to solve their problems and help get them to the result they want. And then the next question really is to move over to you and say, okay, how are you going to find these customers? Where are you going to reach them? So if you're going to do something which doesn't involve spending money, then you're going to be spending time, which means you're going to be creating content. Where are your customers hanging out? It is, to a certain extent. But the other side of this is that action creates clarity. Like, if you said that your customers are, I mean, I know you've been talking about sort of real estate agents, and that's not necessarily going great, but let's say you were going to help I don't know, let's say it was coaches, for example, who want to sell more of their own coaching program. So you're going to help them with the sales side. Then it's like, okay, go talk to some. Like on LinkedIn, you can search for coaches and you can reach out to coaches. That's quite easy to do. So, I think, I don't know what you're limited to now, 100 connection requests a week. Make use of it. Send out the 100. Not all of them are going to connect. Of course they're not. Write a decent LinkedIn profile, which kind of sells people on why they'd want to book a call with you. Start there, like, best guess. And then see how many people visit your profile page, see how many calls you get booked. Because if you're getting 100 people visiting your Facebook page. You get 100 people visiting your LinkedIn profile, and it's designed to move someone to book a call with you, and they're not. Then there's something wrong with the profile. So rewrite it. So it's like all this, everything is feedback in that respect. But that is it. It is literally just start talking to people. I mean, if you're going to stick with the real estate people, it's like, okay, go talk to 20 of them. Find out what goes on in their day-to-day life. Find out what pees them off. Find out what they struggle with. Find out what excites them, where they want to take their business over the next couple of years, like why they got into business in the first place. Like those are the sort of questions you want to know. You want to know why people are doing what they're doing. Now, from a psychological point of view, I can tell you it will fit into the 6 human needs. It's like certainty, variety, significance is a big one, particularly for men. Connection, fulfillment, connection, growth, and contribution, which all then tie together to create fulfillment. Great, but that's engagement. I'm not interested in engagement. I'm interested in sales. So it's like recognize what is a signal and engagement can be, okay, I got engagement. That's a signal that people are interested. But engagement from who? And also, does it move them a step closer to talking to you? I've talked about them before, Rajesh. If I remember to email, I'll email, I'll tie them into a post or something. That might be easier. All right. So look, I'm going to have to go because I've still got loads of packing and bits and pieces to do, unpacking, I should say, and things with the move. But it's difficult to know what's going on in your head, Rajesh. But from a driving point of view, moving things forward, start with this. Fill out this as best you can, because at the beginning they're all best guesses. And then you go research things. It's like, I can have a look at it. Yeah, certainly. But ultimately it's like sort of if you say at the beginning, okay, I'm going to work with coaches, I'm going to work with real estate agents, like, great, then go talk to some. Because in talking to them, you find out what it is they really want and what the problems are. And in talking to them, you might decide, actually, I don't want to work with these people. I want to work with these people instead. So there is an element of you've got to get out and do something. Because if you're stuck at home, and I know obviously with the lockdown and the pandemic and everything else, that's been tricky. But if you're stuck at home, it's very easy to end up, because you're not getting any feedback from the real world, to end up stuck in a loop in your head. So, because, the 4 walls don't give you feedback. So it's like you end up overthinking. You end up coming up with an idea and then overthinking it and then doubting yourself. And that's an easy pattern for anybody to follow when you're not interacting with other people or putting something out in the real world and looking for some sort of feedback. Like if you got engagement from people on a post, then if it was on Facebook and it's early days, then I'd be sending them a direct message saying, hey, you engaged on my post. Glad you liked it. Where are you at in your business? Find out. And if they come back and say, I haven't got a business, it's like, okay. And you see a common pattern of that. It's like, these are the wrong people engaging. So where do you find the right people? So play with it in that way. And obviously on Facebook, on LinkedIn, you can reach out to people who fit the kind of people that you think you want to work with. Easy to do. You just search for them. Facebook, search for groups. Look for the kind of groups where the people you want to work with would hang out. And go in there. So that's where you start. But you got to start. That's the thing. You got to start. You got to talk to real people. You got to get real feedback so you can get insights into what's really going on, the language they use to talk to themselves. So you can put that into your material and then just start building from there. Yeah. So stop it. Give yourself a slap. Give yourself a slap and get filling in the canvas, because this will get you thinking in the right direction. All right. I got to go. So I will talk to you live next week. I'll certainly be live next Thursday, and I'll be posting as regularly as I can through the week in the group. And obviously, I've got a few offers that I'm lining up to be promoting as well, because you've got to do that too. All right. Any questions? If you're watching this in the replay, please post them below, and I will do my best to get around to answering them. Join the group if you haven't already. This one, I want to grow it. I've not done a lot with it, obviously, with everything that's been going on. But I think we're around about 200 members or so. So I want to grow that a little bit more. And certainly over the next week, I will be running ads to start growing the group as well. So we should start seeing more activity in there. The more activity there is, the better from my point of view at this moment in time. Because what I want to do is really make the group a place where you can get answers to your challenges, your problems, and more importantly, not feel that you're doing it on your own. Like I just said, it's very easy. Anybody, I've been through this about anybody stuck indoors. And, and I went from being on stage pretty much every week with, seeing a minimum of 300-400 people a week, and the energy from that is fantastic. And I went from that to suddenly being at home on my own, going, what do I do next? It can drive you crazy. Like the contrast can drive you crazy, but you got to get out into the real world. That's why I started going to networking events. It was like, I'll just go and see. There's got to be human beings there. I'll talk to them. And that's how I discovered that most people don't have a clue about marketing and selling. It was like, I'm listening to all these people get up and say this one. It's like, well, that isn't inspiring. That isn't telling me what benefit I'm going to get or what result I'm going to get. That isn't wanting me to kind of come and talk to you. So that was real world feedback from me going, I see a massive problem. So, and that's kind of led me down the path I've gone down. And of course, other problems I faced in my life, like I talked about supplements, that's leading to another business. But all of these things come from action, from doing something. There is clarity from taking action. There is feedback from taking action. There is insight. More importantly, there is insight from taking action. And so the other thing I do, as you know, and I'm going to repeat it before I sign off, is journaling. Sit down, talk to your journal, ask questions, come up with answers, so that you can stop negotiating with your brain and actually start making progress, because progress is what will make you happy. All right. I will talk to you next time. Leave any comments in either on YouTube. If you watch on YouTube, leave a comment there. If you're on Facebook and you're watching the replay, leave a comment there. And I will see you again sometime very soon online. All right. Take it easy.